Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in. This is your second sample question on the topic of the Federal Skilled Trades program. So let's begin with your question. In this question we have Matt. Now Matt is a licensed plumber from England who has been working in his industry for the past 7 years. He tells you that he spent the first 3 years of his career working as the only plumber for the Great Britain Construction Group, and during this time he completed all of the main duties listed on the NOC full-time. However, after his 3rd year of working for this group, the company received a contract to help install drainage systems for a swimming pool that was going to be used for the Olympics. Because of the size of this project and the fact that the company hired 10 more plumbers on a full-time basis to help with the project, Matt's hours were cut to 17 per week, and he was contracted with only one important task: to cut holes in the walls and floors so that another plumber can fit the appropriate pipes through the building. He visits Elizabeth, an RCIC, and notes that this task is one of the main duties specified on the NOC for plumbers, and his plumber's license will likely transfer to a Canadian equivalent as soon as he passes the relevant exams. Is Matt an ideal candidate for the Federal Skilled Trades program? Now for the potential answers, we have A, which is yes, because he already has the equivalent of a Certificate of Qualification. We have B, yes, because he has more than enough experience as a plumber in terms of time. We have C, no, because he does not have the relevant experience needed to qualify for this program. And finally we have D, which is no, because he does not have a qualifying job offer. Now, if you'd like to pause the video to reread this question and try to get the answer yourself, that would be strongly recommended. And then we could take a look together to see if the answer you chose was correct or incorrect. So if you paused the video and looked at the important parts of the scenario in order to lead you towards the answer you chose, hopefully these parts of the scenario jumped out at you. So we have his role, of course, as a licensed plumber, and the time in there, which is 7 years. Okay, we have those parts about the 3 years working, where he completed all of those NOC duties on a full-time basis. Then we have the other years, where he had that one important task to do on a part-time basis, because this was 17 hours per week. Okay, we have just the confirmation that the duty he was performing was one of the main duties on the NOC for plumbers, and some information about transferring his plumber's license to a Canadian equivalent. Now let's break this down a little bit further. Remember that we're taking a little while to answer this type of question, but as you progress in these lessons, and if you're doing the simulations as well, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of questions to work through. So analyzing the questions in this way will hopefully become just second nature for you. You'll be able to do this really quickly. All right, so as we work our way through those important pieces of that scenario, we have that first paragraph where we can see some important information in here having to do with Matt's certification and his experience. So we could see in there that we have the fact that he's a licensed plumber, which is important because, as you remember from the previous lesson, if a person is unlicensed or not doing that work as a member of a regulatory board, if it's mandatory in that country, then that work experience just doesn't count. So So we can see that he is a licensed plumber, and in terms of his experience, he has 7 years of total experience in this role. Now, as we carry on in here, we can see that the time discussed in this scenario is broken into two areas as well. So we have the first 3 years of his career, and we could see in there that he was the only plumber working for the company, and he performed all those knock duties on a full-time basis. As we moved on through the scenario as well, to when we take a look at the important parts over here, we could see that there is a bit of a different bit of information with his career for the next 4 years. Now, with those next 4 years, we could see that he was cut down to 17 hours a week. And we could see that he only had that one knock duty in there. And in that final paragraph, we could see that piece of information that his license would transfer over to Canada if he took some exams. So when you break down the scenario like this, it's going to help you to really be a lot more concise in answering the question. Now, when we go back to that question and see it in its entirety, we could see that the question itself, of course, is Matt an ideal candidate for the Federal Skilled Trades program? And then we have our potential answers. So we're going to do the same thing as usual, where we will break this down and go answer by answer, and hopefully you got the correct answer. Let's take a look at D first. Now, D is no, because he does not have a qualifying job offer. Now, in this one here, there is no mention in the scenario at all of him having a qualifying job offer. We can see with the general requirements of the Federal Skilled Trades program that there's, of course, the language requirements and things like that, but in terms of a job offer, the person does have to have a job offer, and that would be a qualifying job offer, of course, or a provincial certificate of qualification. So we can see that with this one here, having a qualifying job offer is not the only road to being accepted under the Federal Skilled Trades program. And with that, we could see that D is incorrect. So let's take a look at another option. Now we'll jump up to A, and A is yes, because he already has the equivalent of a certificate of qualification. So we can see how answering D and understanding that D is not the correct answer can help us in A as well. Remember, in the scenario, we had that little piece of information about this, where it said his plumber's license will likely transfer to a Canadian equivalent as soon as he passes the relevant exams. But when we look a little bit deeper, when you think of the general requirements of the Federal Skilled Trades program, there are quite a few requirements, of course. This is one of them. But remember that the person can't only have that certificate of qualification. He needs to have something else in there. And this probably isn't that clear now, but when we take a look at the other answers, this is going to become a little bit more clear. So A is incorrect as well. And to clarify this, the reason that this one is incorrect is because essentially a Federal Skilled Trades person needs a lot more than simply a certificate of qualification in order to immigrate. Now let's keep moving on and analyze B as an option. So B says yes because he has more than enough experience as a plumber in terms of time. Now remember, with experience, you're thinking of two big things. You're thinking of the time, of course, and the role this person plays. So in here we could see that Matt had 7 years of total work, 3 years full-time, where he completed all those knock duties, and after the 3rd year, he has been working, we should say, 17 hours a week. So that's 4 years at 17. When we take a look back to what we saw earlier about the requirements in terms of experience, specifically to do with time, remember we had 2 years of experience. This experience has to be paid, skilled trade work, and those 2 years have to be within the past 5 years. Part-time work is okay, as you can see on the bottom, and non-continuous work is fine as well. However, there's a little trick with this one, and that is, of course, that the role is important. So it can't just be somebody working. The role that he, in this case, Matt, is performing in this work is equally as important. So that is the reason why B is incorrect. Let's take a look at C now, just to confirm why this answer is correct as well. Let's take a look at C now. And by analyzing this, even though we disqualified the other options in this scenario, we'll take a look at C just to confirm that this is the correct answer for us. So C is no, because he does not have the relevant experience needed to qualify for this program. Now we had all of those pieces of information about his experience in the scenario over here. So we saw again that he had 7 years total, 3 years full-time, 4 years part-time, and the knock descriptions that he performed play a role in this as well. That's actually the secret to answering this one, is understanding how much of the knock he did. So remember, he certainly needs that 2 years of paid skilled trade work experience out of the last 5. And if you remember from the previous analysis, when we looked at B, remember that part-time is not a problem, and non-continuous as well is not a problem at all, even though that doesn't really play a role in this question. The really important one here that really brings home the answer for us is in understanding the work experience. So remember that the person has to have performed the actions described in the lead statement for the occupation for knock, and also a substantial number of the main duties listed in the description for the skilled trade occupation set out in the knock, including all of the essential duties. So this one here, we could see that he only performed the one main duty for the last 4 years on a part-time basis. So that would make him, even though he meets the requirements in terms of time, he doesn't meet the requirements in terms of role. So that's why C is the correct answer. So if you got C as the correct answer, a very big congratulations to you. That means you are really on the right path to understanding this topic, and hopefully you'll do just as well in the next sample question. As always, a big thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next sample question, which is question number 3.